Hello and welcome to the Plate Spinning Academy podcast, hosted by me, Nick Davis, a productivity mentor and multi-passionate entrepreneur. I know what it feels like when you want to do all of the projects all at the same time, with never enough time and energy to do it all. I'm a passionate creative who's found my almost perfect blend of business and life that keeps my head motivated, my body energised and my heart happy. I'll be talking about all things to do with organisation, rotas, goal setting, systems and structures, and strategies for business and life together, all combined with a healthy dose of accountability and motivation to help you on your journey. It's time for you to find your tailored recipe for accomplishment and contentment. Hello and welcome to today's episode. This is going out on the first week of March, and as a parent of over 30 years, it is ingrained into my brain that it is World Book Day on the first Thursday of March every single year. Yes, so up and down the country this week there will be lots of kids getting excited about dressing up for school. There will also be lots of parents getting a little bit stressed about that fact as well. And it got me thinking a little bit about a story from quite a few years ago. I'm looking probably about 10 years ago now. It was my first World Book Day with my stepchildren, taking them to school, and it was a bit chaotic, and we had actually made the decision not to participate because, to be honest, we'd had enough going on. They had lost their mum the year before. Everything was in chaos. I was still very new on the school run with them and the other parents, and we were maxed out. We couldn't pull anything together. I think there were 3 of them at primary school at that point. And when I took them to school in the morning, what reaffirmed my decision was the sound of one of the parents, probably a mum, screaming their head off at their child. I mean, it was loud. It was very loud. And I can remember it to this day. I could hear her screaming, "Get up off the floor. Oh, look at you. You've ruined it already. I paid 15 quid for that from Asda last night." And there they were. A little 6-year-old Captain America writhing around on the floor. No cares in the world. They were Captain America. And they had ruined their costume already, and they hadn't even got into school yet. Now, there is no shame here, neither on the screaming mum, because she was probably fuming and stressed, or the 6-year-old who just wanted to roll around on the floor as Captain America, probably extremely overstimulated from the array of costumes in the playground. They normally go into school, everyone's wearing the same thing more or less. It's just a normal day, and World Book Day comes round and it is chaos. They're all excited, they're all talking about their costumes, it's a bit manic. So is it any wonder that Captain America was a bit overloaded and decided to roll around on the floor and ruin their Captain America costume? No, there isn't. And it got me thinking about why this is such a problem, and thinking about that mum the night before. What kind of state was she in that she was so stressed in the morning that she ended up screaming at the child? And I have this vision that it was probably very last minute. There was probably some panic. And what do? Do you want to let your kids down? Or, do you want to be the only one that didn't participate? And I'll tell you now, for the one parent that didn't participate, I didn't care. And the kids never complained. So it was, for me, that wasn't an issue. That's not to say that I haven't participated in World Book Day previously with my older bio kids, but I'll come to that in a little while. Just going back to this mum, she was probably rushing. It was a panic buy, rushing down to Asda, finding a costume that they probably didn't want to pay 15 quid for. It was a last minute decision to go up to the supermarket, and probably all that was on the rack was something like that. And I don't actually remember Captain America being a book. I know it was a comic, but it was probably more a celebration of the film, so nobody's going to say anything. The kids are enjoying it mostly, apart from the ones that get overstimulated. But it just seems to cause an awful lot of panic and extra stress for parents. And then, like I said, overstimulated kids at school. I would not want to be a teacher on World Book Day. So why is it such a problem? After hearing that, do you really have to ask? But I think, do we as parents not have enough to contend with without having to worry about what fancy dress costume to get the kids for World Book Day, knowing full well that if we get them something, they're likely to have grown out of it by next year, so can't use it again? I do remember way back when my bio kids were younger, I remember making a Dorothy costume for my daughter. She was absolutely obsessed with The Wizard of Oz, and I had the perfect blue gingham fabric lying around to make it happen. I was like, yeah, okay, I whipped up a pinafore dress really quickly on the sewing machine because I could. I was able to do that. She wore a little white floral blouse, which was perfect, and we had a little basket that we put one of her, I think it was one of her TY dog teddies in. I think it was a Dalmatian, but for the day it was Toto. And to top it off, she had those little, those little red jelly shoes. They're like sandals, you can wear them on the beach and that. She had a pair of those and they were red and it was perfect. And she absolutely loved it. Her hair was long enough to go into 2 long plaits, just like Dorothy. And the magic was there. She was Dorothy for the day. And I recall seeing lots of other costumes that the parents at the school had clearly put a lot of thought into. I think they had a class photograph. I still got it somewhere. And they were all dressed differently. It was all lovely. And then I remember a few years down the line, I made a zebra costume and I made a lion costume. I think that was probably for the Lion King, out of some plus size clothes that I'd bought from the charity shop for that specific reason. It was like a gold velour, and I thought that's going to make a great lion costume because I could see it at that point. I could had the creativity to say, look at something and go, I can turn that into something else. I guess I still do that now with my upcycling. So I took great pride in making these costumes and she absolutely loved them. And going back to, and we're talking about like late 1990s by this point, there seemed to be no competition, there was no major stress. And here was the difference. Because at that time, I was a stay-at-home mum. I wasn't working as well or working from home, and I wasn't juggling everything. I was on top of everything. Life was slower. There were no mobile phones. Internet, if you had it at that point, was very sparse. I think that was where you could get 1 free hour a night as long as you could get on. And if not, you had to queue up. And I kind of think back to that time going, oh my goodness, what? I was able to do everything. And I was able to enjoy making these costumes and take pleasure in it and see her walk into school with pride that mum had made these for her. It got me thinking about like what happened. It wasn't long after that the supermarkets suddenly started to get onto the World Book Day thing and would start to bring in fancy dress costumes at all times of the year, not just at Christmas or Halloween. So for a mere, let's say £10 at the time, you could buy something to transport your child into a completely different world. And suddenly World Book Day became easy for a lot of parents. Well, surely it was easier just going and buying it. Well, not if you're on a budget. I've seen kids wearing accessories to highlight their characters, like little bits of props here and there. But the full-blown costumes, they're all bought, they're never made. It's because we simply do not have time or headspace anymore to do that. Life is completely different now, kind of 25, 30 years down the line. And I don't feel that homemade is appreciated that much like it used to be. And I want that back. I want the slow life back where we had time to make and sew. We had time to think about it. We had time to scout around the house for inspiration. Like I said, I think the inspiration for Dorothy came from the gingham fabric. And then as soon as I spotted the red jelly shoes, they were the icing on the cake. And it's like, that is absolutely spot on. I can do that. I did the same, I won't say recently, it was a few years ago now, where I was doing a themed bedroom for the twins. And I just needed one tiny little spark of inspiration, and it was just one little thing, and from that I was able to build up an entirely full themed bedroom. It's just that one little spark that you need sometimes, and because we're so busy now, it is sometimes hard to find that spark of creativity. But yeah, I'm digressing now. So I'm just thinking that, if I hadn't have had the gingham fabric and the jelly shoes, I could have created something, I'm sure. But this was our first or second World Book Day. I think it was the first one in reception, and it was perfect. It was absolutely wonderful. Now, thinking about the various theme days that the schools have run over the last few years, we have boycotted pretty much most of them whilst raising my stepchildren, which sounds really mean. Yeah, that fits with the whole mean stepmom thing, doesn't it? The reality is very different. Now, they'd never moaned or complained. Well, they never did to us anyway. And I do think that people around us just realised that we'd had enough chaos go on without us then jumping through hoops just to put them all in fancy dress for one day at school. We also boycotted non-uniform days too. Many times it was because we'd simply forgotten, but other times the kids didn't seem that keen. I think they liked the stability and the insurance of the school uniform, and at the time as well, they didn't actually have a lot of clothes to pose around in. We didn't have the money for them all to be, have loads and loads of clothes. It was quite a difficult time financially. And I remember when I was at school, which was a long time ago, non-uniform days were just being trailed, and there was the discussion about, well, what happens if you haven't got nice clothes? What happens if you haven't got the best branded stuff? And unfortunately, yeah, that totally played out. We had our first non-uniform, and I think we had to pay 50p, and it was all a bit weird. It's like, why are we coming to school in our own clothes? And it was quite apparent that it wasn't going to work, because you could tell the kids that were, let's just say, their parents were overcompensating for their lack of being there with every single bit of branded or designer clothing that they could possibly wear, compared to the rest of us who just had normal clothes. And for myself, I rarely got new clothes. I was always given my cousin's hand-me-downs, which were okay, but they weren't my choice. And I didn't feel great growing up wearing clothes that somebody else had chosen. And I do recall another time the PTFA hijacked the Children in Need Day, which was not on. It was not on at all. So children in need, people dress up in, I don't even know what they dress up in now. And you raise funds and you send it to children in need. No, not this day. The PTFA decided to use it as a wear what you like day for £1. And the proceeds went to the PTFA and not to children in need. And I was not happy with this. So we sent the youngest, he still had his school uniform on, and he was wearing a pair of £1 Pudsey ears from Asda. That was your contribution to children in need. You bought your Pudsey ears, like little dealy boppers, and wore those. And we did not contribute the money to the school. And I waited for a phone call. And I didn't get one. And I'm guessing that they probably didn't dare. And it would not have surprised me if they had told him to remove them. That's how petty things had got as far as fundraising goes. And then there was another day as well where the school would ask for contributions for the Christmas fair in the weeks leading up to Christmas, like we're not spending enough money. So they'd have a chocolate stall. So one week they were all, on a Friday, they were all asked to bring in some chocolates for the chocolate stall. Okay, that's probably harmless enough. And then another week was bringing bottles for the bottle stall. Okay, so a lot of these kids were bringing alcohol in, which you think is okay as long as they're not drinking it around the back of the bike sheds. And I do recall being appalled at seeing these two girls, they were probably like year 5, 6, so they were 10 or 11, running into school. And it was a cold day, so it was a little bit icy on the playground and it was slippy. And they were running a bit late, probably because they were stressing over taking these bottles in. And they both had a bottle of wine in each hand, so this is glass, and running across an icy playground, running to make sure they weren't late. All for the PTFA to have donations. Okay. How bad could that situation have got if they'd have fallen? That's where my brain goes to first. It does go to worst case scenario, and that's not because I'm constantly looking at the negative, it's because I can constantly see the risks. And I just feel like, what would have happened if those girls had have fallen and tripped and broken the glass and cut their arms, and then for what? So the PTFA can have some money. I just didn't feel that it was very fair at all to be putting people in that situation. And then there was another time when they were asked to come in pyjamas, and it was like this time of year. It was kind of the end of February, beginning of March, and it was icy cold. It was freezing, and they were expected to come to school in their pyjamas. Yeah, great fun if you've got a onesie. Not everybody's got a onesie. And at the time we walked to school as well, so it was like, there is no way they are going to school in their pyjamas. It was ridiculous. I just got to the point where I was like, I am not participating in this. And I spoke to the children and I explained why, and they agreed with me. They agreed with me that it was chaotic and upsetting. So we all agreed that, yeah, if they wanted to do it, they could do it. But most of the time, they just weren't bothered at all. They liked the security of the school uniform. So what is the answer to all of this? Because, I don't want to take the fun out of these things, but how do we make it easier for parents and caregivers to oblige? So with regards to fancy dress, I guess something like Vinted could be a solution. You can buy it cheap, get it delivered to home, wear it once, put it back on Vinted for somebody else to buy and hopefully get most of your money back. And if not, it's fine. But it's still spending money. And then it's still also remembering to do it. And then what if it comes and you think, oh, you've got it all sorted and the costume arrives and there's something wrong with it, or it doesn't fit, or it's damaged, or it's just not what you were expecting. You're stressing again last minute. When we go to the charity shops to buy these things, I've seen lots and lots of costumes in charity shops. I also I'm an advocate for reducing fast fashion as well. But a lot of these dressing up costumes are just that. They are fast fashion, they are poor quality and cheaply made. So I guess if you're buying it from a charity shop, it's already in the system. I understand that, but it's still been manufactured at some point. And I just think when you look at the amount of clothing that we have that goes to landfill, you just think this is just contributing, surely. But buying second hand also takes time and effort as well in an already busy society. It's not 1998 anymore. I sometimes wish that it was. Life was so much simpler then, even though I thought life was busy, it wasn't. So is the answer something more simple? Don't dress up, don't have any more non-uniform days or no more pyjama days. And something else that's happened for high school as well, home economics. I remember having to do homework and having to get all your ingredients and weigh it all out. And over the last few years, the twins had to weigh out all of their stuff the night before, and they were actually very disciplined with this. And it was easy because we just bought, whatever we bought, they just divided it into two. But it was still a pain. We were having to remember to get whatever random stuff they needed on the shopping list. And then we had to find suitable containers, and the school ended up scrapping that for the pupils to bring their own ingredients. I think they finally realised it wasn't working, and the solution was that we paid £8 per term for the school to provide the ingredients for them, and it was a perfect solution and so much easier. I was more than happy to just pay the £8 because they can buy it in bulk then as well, and we're sometimes spending a lot of money on ingredients that we're not going to use again. The only problem with this is when our youngest changed high schools last year, the new school hadn't got the memo and we found ourselves having to buy ingredients again. Now, to be honest, at this point we didn't have a major issue with it. He's let us know well in advance. The information, the ingredients are available on the school online portal, so we've had no excuse for him not to have his stuff. But some of these dishes were not cheap to put together, but what we did do is we used it as a full exercise for him to see what it takes to go to the supermarket, find the stuff, look at how much it costs, buying it and then bringing it home and weighing it out and making sure that you've got the right sizes, the right portions and everything. And he has appreciated the full journey of what actually goes into making a meal. It's not just having food appear out of nowhere. You have to go to the shops and buy it. But if we had been too overwhelmed to do this, it wouldn't have happened. And I know, because he's told me, he has been the minority of the pupils in his class when it has come to home economics in actually having the ingredients to hand. Because most of the pupils in the class have turned up saying they'd forgotten their food. And I'll be honest, I doubt they've forgotten their food. I am half guessing that those parents have just gone, no, I'm not doing this. And I'll be honest, I don't blame them. So between remembering PE kits twice a week, losing trainers, coats, shoes, socks, lunch boxes that go walkabout, drinks bottles, bags, the lot, we're dealing with a lot anyway to make sure that the kids are responsible for their own stuff at school. And then we've got constant emails from school about homework and how well they've done during the day at school. And I say this with love, but I genuinely don't want to know. I can get that information when he comes home, and if there's any issues, and yes, we've had quite a few of them, and I have to go into school this week because of an issue, the school gets in touch to speak to us. I'm not saying that we want to switch off from parenting so much, but between the hours of 9 and 3, can you please just leave us alone to let us do what we need to do? Most of us are having to work, and these constant pings, these texts from the school with all sorts of information and the emails. It's like, no, please leave us alone. We'll check it later on and get back to you. Going back to the home ec, on a plus point, we have had some bangingly key lime pie a few weeks ago and a pretty amazing chicken tikka masala curry that I've actually kept the recipe for because it was really good, and he's more confident now in being able to make some food for himself, and that's what it's about. Life skills, and I am a huge advocate for them learning this within the school time, and I wish that they would do more. I mean, think about World Book Day. Do you want a costume? Okay, let's make it in school. Let's learn some sewing techniques, and let's use that imagination and creativity in school and make your costumes in school or come up with something different. These are life skills, and yes, we teach them at home as well, but school, it's just so hard because the curriculum is so jam-packed full, and we all know it's to jump through Ofsted hoops. And I just think what a shame that we haven't got this opportunity for the kids to fully embrace these days and actually create their own things, at school, make stuff. Shouldn't that be a better option? I do wish that life was slower. I wish that we were all at a point where we could take life at our own time, at our own pace. I did see a social media post a few days ago talking about this exact thing. I'm going to get a little bit political now. They said that they wished that they had time to garden, time to plant bulbs, time to take things slow, and unfortunately they are not living right now. They are in survival mode. They're living between fight and flight due to what's going on in America because they were American. And instead of slowing down to relax and enjoy life, which is what we are here to do, they're in a constant state of threat about what's going to happen next, as a lot of us are. And I just wish we could roll back the clock to 1998 where we didn't have all of these pressures. There's so much going on. We work now that we have to do what is absolutely essential and what can fall to the ground. And the things that are falling to the ground are making the costumes for World Book Day, putting all of that time and enjoying it. And I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to this, and I'm absolutely gutted that we are now at a point in our society where we need to enforce our own time. It doesn't happen naturally. We are having to ring fence some downtime and some slower time. We're just caught up in everything that's going on in the world, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm not even sure that Captain America is going to be able to fix this one.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Come and find me on socials. I've got a couple of free groups you can find on my profile that you are welcome to join. I'd love to hear more about what you'd like me to talk about on the podcast, and I would welcome your ideas for future episodes.